I found myself, in a lot of different spaces, different schools, different neighborhoods. So I was constantly being the new kid. So I became very familiar with trying to figure out where I fit into this new space and trying to understand what the culture was that was already established, the dynamics between people, the unspoken rules that everyone else just kind of seemed to know, but I was sort of like stumbling through. And even entering into the professional workspace, the idea of, your hair has to look a certain way, your nails have to be a certain way, and that there's a judgment based off of the choices that you make on how to express yourself in that way. I really started to think about, like, how much of this do I actually agree with and believe in? If I have my hair straight or curly or locked, that doesn't change how professional I am and my competency in the work that I do. And so I've really just been thinking about, what does it mean for me to be professional, show that I'm a competent worker and passionate about what I do, but I'm also an individual. And my individuality doesn't negate the fact that I am, smart or competent or creative.
Okay, I'm glad I get to go into more of the piece after doing the piece, because it's like, okay, cool. I'm glad that what you're saying is in line with what I'm feeling when I'm moving. So now that the piece is done, what do you think about it? Like, what do you think of the end product? Is it the end product? I know nothing's ever finished in dance. So, like, what are your general views of the piece?
I think the piece is, and I say this completely unbiased, but I think the piece is brilliant. Because I feel like it really comes from an honest place. And I think that it works as a great foundation to create more work, more stories off of it. Because through this one, I really mainly focused on, like, the differences between how we physically present ourselves in more professional spaces or in more social spaces, as well as for a dancer, what it feels like to be jumping in between styles that are familiar to you and unfamiliar to you. So that was kind of like the groundwork scape of it. But moving forward, I feel like I can do even more stories, go even more in depth, and show different aspects of it, because there's positive and negative connotations when it comes to code switching or assimilation. And I think that there's so much to be uncovered from it. So I'm happy that this was the great jump start from it.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see this piece being like sections of like a 30-minute. No, because this is a good start to tackle all the style issues that we're going through. And I think code switching is a great start, because that's something that we know what it is. Even when we don't know that word, we are naturally doing it. And so I think this is a great start for like a larger production. Hopefully.
In the future, coming soon.
Let me see. Do I have one more question? Oh, my own personal question.
Okay.
So for the ballet section, you opened a book, chose a random word, and we figured it out. Was that purposeful? Or like, what was the thought behind it? Because I enjoyed doing that. It was fun. It was challenging. But also, I was like, this is different and unique. Like, is it gonna work? How are we gonna make it work? And it worked. So, what was the thought going into that?
I really pulled from my modern contemporary roots. And with Cunningham, he really did a lot of just random picking from it. And I figured, I have a ballet foundation, but I'm working with a dancer who is more advanced in that than I am. So where can I meet in the middle to where it's not just a simple and turn sequence and releve and but something that would be fun, something that would be challenging, and we could both find a way to enter and come into. So I was like, well, why don't I have this ballet dictionary, why don't I just flip through and then just choose and then stitch it together. And I didn't know if it was gonna work. I was like, you know what? I'm not even sure what half of these words mean, but if it looks weird, if it looks awkward, then I think that just, it still connects and relates to the piece. And then if we were able to fumble around and make it work, then that also says something about like how we're trying to force something to fit and to something to make sense on our bodies.
Good. Literally, my whole theme life is that forcing and flowing. And I like how the process of working with you was it was collaborative, but not in a sense of like, hey, Mom, think of 8 counts and 16 counts, which I do not like. Not like when Carter's like,
it's a lot of pressure.
I'm like, if you want me to improv your piece,
right?
Okay. So I really appreciate that. It was very collaborative, but in a sense that I didn't feel that pressure. Like the ballet piece, I was able to like. You didn't know what's happening. I didn't know what's happening, but I got to add my individuality to that part section while you get to choose. So it was like, it was a nice balance, that back and forth. But even when like it came to a movement that I didn't get, it was like, I was like, hey, can I change it to fit my body? And you were like, yeah, like make it work. And I really appreciate that as coming from like a dancer side, because usually choreographer is like, here's choreography, make it work, or give me choreography and then we'll make it work. So your process, it kind of had that in the middle, that had that balance. So I was like trying to think of more questions. No, there's other questions that I have, but overall, I hope to work with you again in the future, because you know, you got like, I was reading this article, it was saying how you gotta start with people that are coming up with you. Like you gotta collaborate with people that are with you where you are at your level, rather than trying to find someone that's already made it. So I'm so glad that I'm able to have the opportunity to work with you now, knowing that you're gonna blow up. Like knowing that you are going to become something, like you're early in your career. So it's like kind of an honor and a privilege to be able to start, be like, hey, I danced with Jurne back in the day when we were in,
right, we have that connection.
We were in Greensboro 10 years ago, and then I see you like as the dance was very small. I see you 10 years later. I'm like, oh snap! Hey, what piece?
Yeah, I'm gonna be calling you like, hey, Milana, I have another piece for you.
Let me know. So this, like, I recognize, like, and also you're a wonderful teacher, a wonderful choreographer, like a wonderful dance. So it's like the fact that being able to start with you now at the beginning of career, and knowing that it's just gonna take off is just. So don't cry. It truly is an honor. So like I said again, thank you so much for growing me as a dancer and just let me do this opportunity and perform and create my first dance film. So thank you.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Somebody get the tissue.
And I was like, okay,